Oh, hello, Joe. It's lovely to
Hello.
see you, and good morning, everyone, to our Saturday conversation. It's so nice to be with you this morning.
Yeah.
Joe, you are no stranger to Saturday morning conversations. You've been involved in them, and you've actually hosted quite a few of them as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I just thought it would be interesting to meet with you this morning because you're about to embark on a very, very exciting new journey.
Very
And
exciting.
that's so wonderful. Now, not many people know this, but this journey actually started, what, about 15 years ago?
At least 15 years ago, yeah. The ones that I can remember, let's put it like that.
Wonderful. Well, would you like to start by telling us about the start of that journey?
So I was pregnant with my second daughter. So I came from a Catholic family, really. Well, my father was Catholic, and my mum never really went to church or anything. So I had a boyfriend when I was like 17, and he was Catholic. So I thought, oh, I should really start to explore, especially if, I mean, he's quite a serious boyfriend. So, I thought, oh, maybe for the future, I might need to know something about church at that time. And so that was kind of when I started to explore. And then I did a confirmation course for the when I was at uni. And at the end of it, the priest said to me, I don't think you're ready. And I've always passionately loved God. Anyone who knows me knows this. Even if I've not been to church, God's always been there for me, and always been in my life. And I've always had a very prayerful kind of existence. So I was really shocked. I mean, I must have been 20 at the time, and I thought, oh, that's it now. Turn my back on the church, and that was it. And then when I had my first daughter, we had the discussion about, what faith and so on and so forth. And my husband was absolutely adamant, because he was Church of England. He's absolutely adamant that he would not have a Catholic child. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but, people obviously hold on to their own traditions. I'm not saying that he didn't understand or anything else, but it's his whole family were in the Church of England. So that was really special to him. And anyway, so we decided to have Moni baptised in the Church of England, our local church, All Saints in Moneyford. And but I hadn't been baptised either. So 1 month before Moni, I was baptised. And it was a very small ceremony. It was only with the godparents. I think there were 5 of us, and it was a Saturday afternoon. So it's very odd. Actually, I wish I could recapture that time and do it again. A bit bigger. So Moni was baptised. We had a wedding blessing. I was baptised. That was all in 2005, sorry. Then I had Sylvie. So Sylvie was born in 2007. When I was pregnant, so this is the point I'm getting to. Sorry, Kate, I've gone round about the house there. I remember being pregnant, and I looked up at Helen one day, and I saw her in her collar, because she was leading the service, and I saw myself, a vision of myself. And I laughed out loud. Because what do you do when you suddenly see yourself in that sort of, I mean, I'd never ever entertained the idea. And the only reason why I remember it today is because the bishop said to me at my first diocesan panel, what's your earliest memory of a call to ordination? And that was it.
Oh, this is Helen Griffiths.
Yeah, this is Helen. Yeah, so
and Helen was your vicar at the time.
Yeah.
Gosh, that must have been quite surreal.
Totally and utterly surreal. Honestly, I never thought. I mean, I think when you're completely, I mean, essentially, I don't want to say completely unchurched, but when you've got no no benchmark, no parameters at all. You've no idea what this whole thing is. It's totally weird. You know, when you go in and you see, you know, all these rituals and things, you think, what's all that about? And so I think for me, like having that vision, that was like the most peculiar thing, because at the time, you know, I was in teaching. I'd been in teaching for so many years. I loved teaching. I was a teacher trainer as well. There was nothing that I thought, or I never thought that I would not be teaching in a classroom situation, because obviously, you know, being ordained does involve lots of teaching as well. So yeah, it was weird, and I laughed, and then just suppressed it like most people do.
So fast forward though over the next few years. So
yeah,
so if that was 15 years ago, that must have been 2000 and
yeah. So it must have been 2006. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So fast forward 10 years to 2016. Where were you on your journey then?
So I always say that, and this is a bit of a bone of contention for Christians, because some Christians say, unless you have that moment of transformation when you know that your life's not going to be the same ever again, you haven't really experienced Christ. A lot of people say that, don't they, Kate? They say that there has to be that pivotal moment. So if I was going to say what my pivotal moment was, it was most definitely in 2011. I'd been thinking about it. I'd been sort of exploring faith. I was leading Sunday school, been thinking about it literally all the time. Had done Alpha, hadn't really been blown away by Alpha at the time. But then when I compare, so Alpha was in sort of 2010, and when I compare everything that's happened since then, like it obviously was transformational in some way. But I remember reading this book by Tom Wright. It was for Lent, because I couldn't do the Lent courses because I had young children and everything else. And I always say that God speaks to me through Amazon. And I had this wonderful recommendation for a book, Matthew. So Tom Wright, Matthew for Lent, something like that, or Matthew for Everyone for Lent. And I thought, yeah, that looks good. Of course, me being me, Kate, I didn't get round to reading it for the first 3 weeks. Then I was staying with my parents, and one of my, I think Sylvia was not very well, and I had the book with me, and I thought, oh, you know, I can't go anywhere. She's not very well. I might as well start this. And literally, it was gripping. It was like, I don't want to say 50 Shades of Grey, because that might not be the right analogy, but it was certainly a very, very exciting read, to say the least. And I got to Good Friday, so it takes you through the Easter narrative. I do recommend these books. They are still available, and Tom Wright's done 3 of them, which takes you through the narrative in that gospel. So got to the end of it, and so got to Good Friday, and we do a walk of witness in Muddyford. And I said to Helen, I think I need to go further. It's not enough. And when we met shortly after that, she said to me, I said, oh, I was thinking about training as a licensed lay minister. And she said, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that would be no problem at all, blah, blah, blah. Have you thought about ordination? And as soon as she said that, I was like, no, because that stayed with me then from that moment. So it was that one thing, like, that she kind of affirmed the calling, but also something else that I wasn't willing to kind of embrace at that time.
So you went forward to what?
So I went forward
in
2016. Yeah. So I had there was a bit of a time lapse because my mum wasn't very well. Then she died, and you know, when you have personal situations, it's so easy to actually suppress it, you know, or be in denial about the whole thing and pretend it's not happening, because you don't have capacity when you've got, you know, personal circumstances to kind of really address that, because it's so mind-blowing anyway. So yes, so it took me from 2011 to 2016 to actually go to the bishop's panel. So I don't know how much everyone knows, but you have so many interviews. Then you have diocesan panel, and then they say, yes, we think you're ready to be tested at national panel. And so I went to national panel in October 2016 and didn't get through. Which I've just been having a conversation on Twitter with someone who's just in the same position as this, because it's pretty, anyone who hasn't got through, particularly at BAB, feels like they've just entered the abyss, quite honestly.
Yeah, that must have been so hard for you.
It was so difficult because my dad had had a stroke as well that year. So dad had the stroke in May and I went to panel in the October. And so, yeah, it just felt like everything kind of was just going so horribly wrong. And then obviously I couldn't, you know, he kind of knew, but I couldn't really talk to him about it because he'd had the stroke. And yeah, it's the most being not, I can't even put it into words to this day. All I can say is I've never felt pain like it. That's it.
So that was absolutely an awful time of your life, but it sounds as if it was also very formative, because if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have landed up with us in Avon Valley Churches.
No, I mean, you know that even at that point in time, I knew that God was in it. And so I wasn't surprised or worried or whatever else, but it's how do you recover from the rejection? Now, what's wonderful is people always say, well, it's not a rejection. It is, because they've said no. I'm not saying that God's rejected you, because obviously that's not how it works. But it certainly is a 100%. It's like the worst thing that someone can say to you. Interestingly, they write a report as well. And I had a 5-page report that told me how awful I was. There are a few good bits, but genuinely, there were things that they said about me that just came from nowhere. Like, I had no friends. I wasn't able to maintain distance with people, so I was in their face. I didn't have mental capacity to study theology. My calling wasn't realistic. I think out of 9 criteria, they'd only found in my favour on 2 out of 9. And this whole process, they have to find in favour of the vocation one. And so that was hard, because you think, I've not only done loads of things, I've been so involved in church for already, by that stage, it was like 8 years, something like that. I've done so many other teaching related things and all the rest of it, you know, setting up Mothers Union in Muddyford and all this stuff. I just didn't understand it. And so that was the hard bit, actually, to read that about yourself, because no one wants to read that about themselves.
Yeah.
But no
that
one wants
also,
to be told that.
yeah, but that spurred you on, didn't it? Because you thought, oh, well, I'm not putting up with this. So where did you go from there?
So after about 6 months, I got in touch with the diocese and I said, what are you going to offer me? I haven't got through that, but I'm genuinely committed to doing anything. And so they said, well, we'll offer you licensed lay ministry, the licensed lay ministry course. I said, well, I've already decided I'm going to do a master's at Moorlands. They've accepted me, which is a bit of a shock, but they have. But because I'm not going to be working for the foreseeable, I'm interested in maybe doing both, because I could have done both. It was feasible. And so we worked through the programme. I went to Wolsey, we worked through the programme. It was all lovely. And then I got a letter. I just had Ofsted in at my place of work, and we'd had this horrendous 3 days of Ofsted. And I got the letter that said, we'd like you to meet the bishop and explain why you're offering yourself for this ministry. And I just threw all my toys out of the cot, because I said, I'm not going to lie. And which Helen later said to me, you didn't have to lie. You could have told the truth about why you were there. But I didn't want to lie. And I knew that I hadn't offered even saying the words, offering yourself for this ministry, when you know that you haven't. And I don't think I'm being literal when I say, I know I haven't. There was just something about it that I thought, no, I just can't do this. And mind you, it's played out later, because then I got the job with you guys, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I decided I'd go to Moorlands. So that was my thing. After they said, you don't have, educationally, you don't have capability to study theology. So from that perspective, I thought, well, I've got to do something now. I've got to study theology. And I didn't think of it. Actually, with hindsight, I probably would have done a BA actually now, because it would have been a bit easier and I would have had a bit more contact with people. But I thought, no, I'm doing a master's. I'm so stubborn. Anyone who knows me, I'm like the most stubborn person ever. And as soon as they'd accepted me, I was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. And what was even worse came, I mean, talk about everything going wrong, not getting through the interview. I failed my first assignment at Moorlands. It was terrible. And I had to rewrite a whole other one. Because to be honest, I hadn't been in education properly, sort of writing academic stuff for 20 years. So when I didn't get through, I remember saying to my tutor, I'm this close to turning my back on God forever. I'm not joking, like everything is bad now. And he said, we don't want you to do that. And he said, you can change church, And I said, no, I can't. I'm like 100% committed to the church thing. I just can't. So that was where it was. But but he was just so brilliant. My MA lead at the time, Chris Jack, just fantastic individual and so supportive all the way along, and had lots of tissues.
So you've been on quite a journey for the last 3 years, and during that time you have gone forward again.
Yes.
But this time it's a different outcome, isn't it? It
is, yeah. So if I held my two reports up, it's like two different people. So from not being affirmed on most of it to actually being affirmed on all of the criteria was like quite remarkable. I think one of the most telling sort of questions they asked me this time was, how did you feel when you didn't get through? And I said to them, I couldn't understand how they couldn't see, how the advisors couldn't see what's going on inside me. So they'd written this report about someone, but obviously didn't see anything that mattered on that day. And I think they were quite struck by that, actually.
So you are now starting on the next part of your journey towards ordination.
I know, it's so exciting. I can't imagine it.
But it's a different training, isn't it? It's a specialist training you're doing.
Yeah. So one of the things when you go forward, they tick different boxes for different things. And so one of the boxes I ticked was pioneer, because I've always felt kind of less connected to the church, more connected to community than outside the church building. So I was delighted to find and be able to do a master's with CMS and with Cudstone, which is the formation part of the training. And so I got the opportunity to do pioneer, but also the other thing that they've thrown up, but I don't know how that will work out, is because I've got a long history in teacher training, they've kind of identified me as a potential theological educator. So
So not only will you be a theological scholar, you'll be a reverent theological scholar.
Well, I hope so. Do you know, Kate, I really, really hope so. You don't realise actually just what, I mean, I've always, within, you know, they talk about calling within a calling. And I've had this conversation with Gary before, because I think musically he's just so amazing. And I say to him, that must be your calling within a calling. But I think mine's definitely education. Definitely. I just love being in that environment of education. It's just so, I don't know, my mind's blown by other people and their experiences and all of that stuff. I just love it.
Oh,
So yes,
we're so excited, Jo. We really are that you're going on this, but that does mean that you're leaving your job.
It does, unfortunately.
So you'll be finishing what, on the 12th of September?
That's right, yeah.
So what's happening then?
So on the 13th, I'm going straight back into education. So I've just finished one dissertation, which is being bound as we speak. And for anyone who has ever done a dissertation, I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but I'm going to be a trailblazer because I'm having a pink cover. And my tutor said, I've never had a pink one, so I would love it to come from you. Yeah, so I just finished literally 2 days ago. I finished my dissertation for this master's, and I start my new one on the 13th. It's so exciting.
But we're not losing you though, are we?
But I'm staying put. So it was suggested that I move on. So because youth, children and families workers are very much, they're so kind of entrenched in what they do that sometimes it's hard for the parish to make that change from seeing this person in this role to this person in this role. But Gary and I have reassured them that we think that this is definitely the best. I mean, I don't know another team that is so diverse and has so much lay leadership and so much team ministry as we do. And it's just such a privilege to be with here, isn't it, Kate?
It's absolutely wonderful. And we're just so thrilled that we're not losing you immediately.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too.
So I think what we need to do is in 6 months' time, we'll have to have another Saturday conversation, Jo.
Sounds amazing. I think we should do.
To find out how you're getting on. But may God be with you in everything that you do. And it's just such a joy. But do join us all again tomorrow morning. Our usual Sunday services, they'll be streamed and in person in all of our churches. And we just know that God has a special journey for Jo to follow. So bye-bye, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.